everyone, Alex and Eric from Coramdale Farm. We are heading into year 4 Oklahoma flower farm that sells retail market bouquets from our roadside stand. And we today are planting our 3rd tulip field. We are heading into year 4 on our flower farm, but this is our 3rd year with tulips. And since we literally turned the camera on YouTube when we started our flower farm 3 years ago, this is our 3rd tulip video. So I will link in the caption below if you want to watch our old videos and see when we first started tulips. We planted them in our giant raised garden, which is kind of our private garden now as the way the farm has developed. We planted them in there. And then last year we planted them out in our field, but since you want to rotate where you plant your tulips every 7 years, if you can believe it, we put our box on the other side than where we are now. But Eric's process is he tills the row, and then he builds the raised box on top of that row that we already had in our existing field. And these boards we used last year. So it's also really economical to be able to reuse these boards. He broke them down when tulip season was done, stored them, he pulled them back out. He's built me another box. Now we're on the sunflower field side of our farm where we're planting our tulips. And this year we have 6,600 tulips, I believe, is the final count, and we are working on planting them today. It's the end of December, and these guys have all been pre-chilling in our cooler since about mid-October. In Oklahoma, we don't get cold enough to rely on just the winter to give tulips the chill hours they need, and so we have been successful in giving them kind of a boost. So they have gotten almost 10 weeks of pre-chilling by us. They're going here in the end of December, early January, so then we'll have 2 months to kind of hopefully get the last 3 to 4 weeks that they need for pre-chilling, and they'll come back up. So the way we plant tulips, if you've never seen it before in the flower farming world, we plant them what's called egg carton style. So they're right next to each other. Almost, some of them touch, some of them have a little bit of a gap, just like in an egg carton. And the reason for this is when we harvest them, we pull the whole plant up. And the reason we do that is we want to maximize the stem length for our wrapped bouquets, but we also don't want to leave the bulbs in ground because, again, they're not going to perennialize. They're not going to come back up again for us next year. So they get composted, and then this field is going to be used for sunflowers after that. So that's why we get to plant them so close. So in theory, how long is this row, honey? 40 feet should hold, we think, 6,000, maybe a little bit less. Any extras that we have, we'll plant in crates, which will be fine. But what's going to happen is once we're done here planting, Eric's going to get the tractor out with the bucket attachment, and our compost pile, which is right behind me, he is going to scoop it and dump it into our raised beds that we erected, and then we'll smooth it out. And that means no trenching, no digging, no shoveling. And the compost, which is really light and airy and fluffy, makes it super easy for us to pull them up at harvest time and not have breakage and all of that. And so this is, I think, the best way to do it. But I will say, because I know people are saying this right now on the camera, why aren't you just dumping them and moving on? And yes, dumping works. That's what they do in Holland. When you see all the tulip fields, they're clearly getting tossed. Other flower farms will just dump them. It works, but I don't want to do it. I like the order that this is. I like that they're all pointing up and in a row, and so it is the most efficient use of our space. When you're dumping, you're not going to be using it as efficiently And so we might need more space than we would otherwise have. I like that when I pull them up, they're not going to be kind of like wonky bent from growing sideways sort of thing. I get it. You do you on your flower farm how you want to do it. We have 5 kids, so we have lots of helping hands, and we're going to plant them this way, and that's what makes me happy. But we're doing a time lapse here to get down through the whole row, and I'm really excited. Right now, we're at about 2,000 we've planted of the 6,000. So we need to get focused. My mom has baby, so if I can get as much of this done before I have to nurse again, that would be great because I'm all super muddy. But we're like little typewriter machines right now to get this done. So let's press. Over 6,000 tulips planted. For comparison's sake, if you're planting tulips, you're trying to figure out your spacing and how much space you'll need. We fit about a little bit over 6,000 tulips in a 4 by 40 raised bed. And we were like just slamming them in there at the end, trying to fit them. I noticed that when we were planting and pulling out the bulbs, I had ordered 2 or 3 varieties to experiment with in much smaller quantities than we typically order. And one of them was Columbus. It's a beautiful double. It's really popular, but the bulbs did not look good. They were kind of squishy. They were mottled. They were small. I just was a little nervous about them. And I didn't want to risk, it's fine if they rot and never grew, but I didn't want to risk the, how do you pronounce it? The fusilium, whatever the tulip fire disease is. I didn't want to risk it in case that's what I was looking at. So I planted them in crates, and I had 200 of them, and we needed 2 crates to fit them. So I'm going to put those at the end and kind of keep them isolated. I took pictures so I could contact the wholesaler in case, you know, they just didn't work out. But that's technically what our overflow was, 40 feet plus 2 crates. Tulips are incredibly thirsty. So many people are worried about rotting because obviously when you're dealing with a bulb, things can rot if they stay damp for too long. But tulips are also super thirsty, and that's one of the reasons people will end up with short stems on tulips is they don't actually get enough water. So what I'm going to do here, now that we haven't covered them yet, they're all just in the box, I'm going to get the hose and I'm going to give them a super deep, almost like flooding soak. So then Eric's going to get the tractor out, put the compost on top, and then I'll do another water over top. But by doing it now when they're exposed, you know for sure that good water is getting to the bulbs. Whereas when you fill it with compost, you're going to have to water so much that it gets down that full 6 inches to get them water. So that's a tip to do when you're planting, is to give them a good water before you cover them up and then water them again. We don't get a lot of snowpack and a lot of precipitation in the winter, so we end up having to water them. If you're in a really cold place and you've got the snowpack and they get a slow drip that way, then you're fine. But I want to say last year, every couple weeks, probably I was coming out here to give them some water. And then for sure, when they start popping up above ground, which for us will be in February, I'm really going to start giving them water there because they're in active growth for us. And if all goes well, these guys should start blooming 3rd week of March would be my guess for the first ones to see. So I'm going to get these watered and we're going to get filling. 2025 tulips, 6,000 of them are planted. We started getting going around 11 a.m. It's 4 o'clock now when we took a lunch break. So that's about as long as it took us to go from an empty row to raised boxes built, 6,000 planted, filled, and watered.
With part-time employees.
With part-time employees known as our small children. Not a bad work day. The weather was beautiful, worked out for us. Here's our crates here I mentioned at the end that I'll get watered in when we're done here. But at the end, I wanted to mention a couple things. First is, if you like our content and you want to know more specific details about our part-time flower farming operation, we have a Patreon where we upload more videos, more details. I put together written material and really give you the extra details that YouTube, sometimes isn't easy a format to give it to you, or you don't have time to go through like our whole library, because like I mentioned, this is our 3rd year with our flower farm. So check out Patreon. I think it's a deal. It's a monthly fee. If you don't know about Patreon, you just pay monthly and then you get a bunch of content each month. But the exciting thing is you also get all of the archives. So if you join now, we started in August. So that's like 5 months of extra videos, Q&As, written material for you to go through, especially in the winter when we're going into January here where there's not much going on. A lot of us are like dreaming, scheming, planning for spring. And so I think it'd be worth your time. So check it out in the link below. But we'll end here talking a bit about like the biggest question that shows up with tulips is, why do I have short stems on my tulips? And I wanted to share there's kind of 3 main reasons why. And if you think about them, you can kind of avoid them or troubleshoot if you have problems. The first one, which unfortunately, since it's the end of December, there's not a ton you can do about, but it's not enough chill hours. So obviously our wonderful friends up north, they planted their tulips probably in October and November. They're going to get more than enough in-ground chill hours, and that is not a problem for them. For those of us that are farther south or in warmer climates, we really need to pre-chill our bulbs. And so that's why from our wholesalers, I asked to receive our bulbs in early October so I could put them in our cooler, give them about 8 to 10 weeks jump start, plant them out now, and then hopefully January and February will give them the rest that they need, because our tulips start going in March. Whereas like up north, sometimes it's not until the end of April or early May that they start getting some of their tulips. So pre-chill hours matter. If you don't have any tulips, you're in a warm climate and you want to plant them, time's up. Think about it for next year, plan for next year to get those pre-chill hours. You can't really skip that step. It's a non-negotiable. The second one, which is really easy to get correct, is they need to be planted 6 inches deep. Sometimes you might think like, oh, well, if I plant them more shallow, they'll get going and they'll be taller than if I plant them deeper. Not true. You want to hit that 6 inches. If you plant them too shallow, the bulbs are not as happy and they'll stunt more and you'll get a shorter stem. So make sure you hit the 6 inches. It's helpful when you do it this way because you know how many inches your board is, you know the level you planted them, and you can easily backfill the soil to hit the 6 inches. And then the third reason... Oh, what?
We overfilled it.
Oh, Eric wanted me to...
An extra couple inches.
Yeah, Eric wanted me to note here of what you're looking at. We overfilled to the very top because our compost is so wonderful and so fluffy and crumbly. It is going to settle. And so we want to account for that. So ours is probably definitely going to sink down an inch or two, and then we'll hit that 6 inches from our, what is this, a 10-inch board? It's going to sink down. So that's why it's all the way to the top here. And then the last one is kind of what I mentioned a little bit ago, is not enough water. So you want to really water them in when you plant them, and then when you start seeing them point up above the soil and they're really entering their active growth period, you want to be drenching them and giving them lots of water. And the thing that I sometimes forget that I want to remind you of is the bulb is 6 inches under the soil and its roots come out the bottom of the bulb. And so if you get your hose out and you give it like a little sprinkadink where it's like 2 inches of the topsoil got wet and you call it good, well, you might as well have not watered, because none of that water made it down to the roots. And so when we're watering, we're talking about watering when it's time. But then you give them that really good soak, and then you can wait a couple more weeks before you do it again if you're in a place that doesn't get much moisture. So 6 inches, pre-chill, give them lots of water.
I think you're presuming
What?
that they also chose the right varieties.
Oh, okay, yeah. Eric mentioned varieties. If you want to know what all of these varieties are, plus really pretty pictures, which is always helpful, I will link that video. We did a video talking about everything that we were going to grow. Eric makes a good point. The Tulip catalog is incredible. You can drown in varieties and excitements. There's literally hundreds and hundreds, but not all of them make the best cuts, and not all of them are the best choice, particularly for what you're selling for. If you've watched our channel, I had an interview with my friend Allison, who grows in South Tulsa. She sells primarily to florists, and so when she buys tulip bulbs, she's making very different decisions than we are selling market bouquets. But the biggest thing is you need to be looking at the stem length. If you are looking in the catalog and it says it's a 12-inch to like 18-inch stem, personally, I would skip that. I would say 18-inch minimum is what you're looking for. I know people will grumble because they want this like perfect, beautiful double. Doubles tend to be short, and if you are selling a wrapped bouquet, you need to hit that length so it even can fit into the wrap. If you're selling to florists who do event work or want certain colors, that's different, but we're talking about market bouquets. And so our tulips almost exclusively are from the Darwin series because they tend to be really long, really big buds, and they're also really tough. Last year we had a compost issue, and the ones that pushed through and survived the best were all of the Darwin series ones. So we pretty much focused on those with a couple extras. So watch that video if you want to see exactly what we're growing, but you do need to make good variety choices. And personally, if you're a market bouquet seller, I think you should not do the doubles, but everyone gets fussy about it because there are lots of different market decisions and you need to know your market. For us, the giant, beautiful, long stem singles is what sells great, and it's a cheaper bulb cost than the double, and so we make more money. All of that. If you want to know and really deep dive about like how to make profitable decisions for this flower, for other flowers, that's an example of something we talk on Patreon. I think Eric uploaded like a full hour extra video that we did talking just about tulips, of how to make these sorts of decisions and things to think about. That's just over on Patreon. So I think you should join us over there. I think last time I looked, we have over 80 of you over there. So it's a great community because we have a flower chat. I take questions from you guys. It's really awesome. So join us in 2025 over on the Patreon side of our world. But I feel super optimistic about our tulips next year. I was a little bummed last year because of that compost issue, but I feel good about this. We checked all the right boxes. We need to protect them from deer now because little forest friends have found our farm, but we have a plan for that. And I'm hoping that by March, we're ready to go. And I can put them in my brand new cooler that Eric built me, which is going to be epic. But, oh no, he's coming out. Woo! Hello.
We've got spring flowers planted.
Yay, we're done until, I hope so. We're
It's
done
gonna be
until
locked on your
February.
face.
We're done until February.
Congrats
Yay.
on all those spring ranunculus.
Yay.
2,000
Yeah.
tulips. 6,000.
Yep. Anemone.
Annuala, 600. Anemone. Anemone.
What was that?
Anemone.
Anemones.
I said barrel again. I keep saying wheelbarrow.
We're nailing it.
Wheelbarrow.
Follow us for more
This
pronunciation
is why you gotta
tips.
teach your kids pronunciation, because if you don't correct them, and they say them for 40 years.
And we homeschool. Oh dear. Our poor children.
So 700 anemones.
Anemones.
Anemones?
No, they're not enemies.
Enemies. Unfortunately, not enough snapdragons, because
We have snapdragons.
we killed too many.
I killed one tray, you guys. Just one tray.
Just like left them out and murdered them on a cold night.
I did it on purpose. I purposely
Just
murdered
like,
them.
get out of here.
I'm sick of you. No more planting.
So this is where all the money is made.
Yeah.
And we're thankful to your father-in-law.
My
Weeded
dad-
our ranunculus problem.
My dad helped us weed, which is incredible. Because that
Thank you,
was.
Dad.
Thank you, Dad. And you'll watch this video, so extra thank you.
Thank you. Triple thank you.
And thank you to Baby for taking a really solid nap.
Oh,
so I could power through and plant all of this and not have to like feed multiple times in the field, because that wasn't ideal.
I'm standing in front of you, so you're going to look like a midget.
This is your height and my height,
I have to
so
like stand behind you to give perspective here. All right.
All right,
Close
guys.
out.
Woohoo! This is the last video of 2024. You guys, okay.
Get to say
This
year
is
four.
okay, so this is at the end of the video, and for all of you OGs that have been watching us, and also all of you that are awesome and watch
Do another year-end
I know.
secret word.
That's what I'm trying to get to. Is those of you that watch our videos and watch to the end, the secret word to put in the comments is 4. Because next video I get to say what?
Year 4.
We are a year 4 flower farm. Bye, guys.